The following is a brief but intense account of a Soviet soldier's experience at Stalingrad. Caught somewhere in the hellish landscape of the destroyed city, our soldier begins his story.
We moved back, occupying one building after another, turning them into strongholds. A soldier would crawl out of an occupied position only when the ground was on fire under him and his clothes were smoldering. During the day, the Germans managed to occupy only 2 blocks. At the crossroads of Krasno-Peterskaya and Komsomolskaya streets, we occupied a 3-story building on the corner. This was a good position from which to fire on all comers, and it became our last defense. I ordered all entrances to be barricaded and windows and embrasures to be adapted so that we could fire through them with all our remaining weapons. At a narrow window of the semi-basement, we placed the heavy machine gun with our emergency supply ammunition, the last belt of cartridges. I had decided to use it at the last most critical moment. 2 groups, 6 in each, went up to the 3rd floor and the garret. Their job was to break down walls and prepare lumps of stone and beams to throw at the Germans when they came up close. A place for the seriously wounded was set aside in the basement. Our garrison consisted of 40 men. Difficult days began. The basement was full of wounded. Only 12 men were still able to fight. There was no water. All we had left in the way of food was a few pounds of scorched grain. The Germans decided to beat us with starvation. Their attack stopped, but they kept up fire from their heavy caliber machine guns all the time. The Germans attacked again. I ran upstairs with my men and could see their thin, blackened and stained faces, the bandages on their wounds, dirty and clotted with blood, their guns held firmly in their hands. There was no fear in their eyes. Lyuba Nesterenko, a nurse, was dying with blood flowing from a wound in her chest. She had a bandage in her hand. Before she died, she wanted to help to bind someone's wound, but she failed. The German attack was beaten off. In the silence that gathered around us, we could hear the bitter fighting going on for Matveyev Kurgan and in the factory area of the city. How could we help the men defending the city? How could we divert from over there even a part of the enemy forces which had stopped attacking our building? We decided to raise a red flag over the building so that they would not think we had given up. But we had no red material. Understanding what we wanted to do, one of the men who was severely wounded took off his bloody vest and, after wiping the blood of his wound with it, handed it over to me. The Germans shouted through a megaphone, "Russians, surrender, you'll die just the same." At that moment a red flag rose over our building. "Park, you dogs, we've still got a long time to live," shouted my orderly Kozhushko. We beat off the next attack with stones, firing occasionally and throwing our last grenades. Suddenly, from behind a blank wall from the rear came the grind of a tank's caterpillar tracks. We had no anti-tank grenadiers. All we had was one anti-tank rifle with 3 rounds. I handed the rifle to an anti-tank man, Berdyshev, and sent him out through back to fire at the tank point blank. But before he could get into position, he was captured by a German Tommy gunners. What Berdyshev told the Germans I don't know, but I can guess that he led them up the garden path, because an hour later they started to attack at precisely that point where I had put my machine gun with its emergency belt of cartridges. This time, reckoning that we had run out of ammunition, they came impudently out of their shelter, standing up and shouting. They came down the street in a column. I put the last belt in the heavy machine gun at the semi-basement window and sent the whole of the 250 bullets into the yelling, dirty grey Nazi mob. I was wounded in the hand, but did not let go of the machine gun. Heaps of bodies littered the ground. The Germans, still alive, ran for cover in panic. An hour later they led our anti-tank rifleman onto a heap or ruins and shot him in front of our eyes for having shown them the way into my machine gun. There were no more attacks. An avalanche of shells fell on the building. The Germans stormed at us with every possible kind of weapon. We couldn't raise our heads. Again we heard the ominous sound of tanks. From behind a neighboring block, stocky German tanks began to crawl out. This clearly was the end. The guardsmen said goodbye to one another. With a dagger my orderly scratched on a brick wall. Rodimtsev's guardsmen fought and died for their country here.